of my eye. Girl, I never loved one like you.
Man, oh man, you're my best friend. I'm screaming too. There's nothing there.
Thank you, everyone. They asked us if we wanted to borrow, but I'm glad we said no to that. That would really be tough to get everybody corral here. On behalf of Marge and the rest of our family, we want to thank you all for coming today. The thoughts, prayers, everything over the last months, even a couple of years, has just been unbelievable. It's so special to look out and see everyone out here today. Family, friends, loved ones. It's an amazing, amazing gift. They say that you're the sum of your experiences, so at a tough time like this, to look out at everyone, in a way you feel like you're looking out at your dad. And certainly looking at his life experiences. We hope the stories and memories and lessons, things you're going to hear today, are as much of a gift to us as you all being here. And we hope it's going to be a gift that, in a way, these stories in our father's life will be a gift to you as well. So again, we thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts during this very difficult time. It means so much, and we're going to actually start now with a brief slideshow prior to the first speaker. Thank you. Love you all.
We were juniors in high school. I told him I wasn't going to say anything about the three most embarrassing moments of his life. But I was fortunate enough to be there for him. But before I get into all that stuff, this is a very serious moment. And it's a fun moment. And it should be both. So I'd really like to take a moment to be serious about the impact of this. Now I'm finished being serious. I'll get to the point. I met Jimmy in high school. We had to go to LaSalle High School. We couldn't meet in Bergin. And we were juniors in high school. He had a car. I had a SEPTA pass. But everyone here has talked about Jimmy Dockery's stories. So I've known him since I was 15. I'm 67. And I think there are 1,000 stories for each of those 32 years. Jim helped me in high school with mathematics. You can see the effect it's had. I helped him when we used to play games. For instance, you were 15 years old and he wanted to play cops and robbers. I was the robber. Which meant he could catch me every time. He'd say, okay, go ahead. I'd start running, he'd trip. I said, Doc, I'm thinking about the robber. I should get a head start anyway. That wasn't the case with that. But all of his comrades from the police department and his friends for so many years are here and they're discussing Jimmy, extolling his virtues, tenacious, intelligent, persistence. Well, originally I thought it was the wrong fucking part. Tenacious, intelligent, persistent, never gives up. I know the 6 times in his life he gave up. I was there. And I'm happy to be here tonight. Let me tell you, I think I got in without paying. I found that exciting. I'm still a robber. But I can go into a lot of stories about how I helped him in physics in high school, math in high school. I feel principally responsible for him getting a scholarship to Georgetown University while I went to community college. It was an affirmative action. I ran to community college. He did an immigration program at Georgetown. They said, shit, West Germantown that ever applied to Georgetown. So we made it. We had, for each of those 32 years that I've known him, we just had a wonderful, wonderful time. And it's great to be here to celebrate this. I've also mentioned anybody, if you haven't changed the locks on your door, you really should do that soon. So now he's going to be free 24/7. Anyway, he's the man.
All the money that e'er I had, I spent it in good company, and all the harm I've ever done, alas, it was to none but me. And all I've done for want of wit, to memory now I can't recall. So fill to me the parting glass, good night and joy be to you all. They're sorry for my going away, and all the sweethearts that there I had, they wish me one more day to stay. Since it fell to my lot that I should rise and you should not, I gently rise and softly call, good night. Joy
Canoe was your being here and sharing the beginning of a relationship that we feel is just wonderful. And we can't thank you enough for coming. We pledge love to each other. It's the love that we have developed and learned from our parents and our friends and our relationship and our family. And we hope we'll all live a long, long time sharing that with everybody that's here. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
was a time when you let me know what's really going on below. But now you never show that to me, do ya? Remember when I moved in you and the holy dove was moving too, and every breath we drew was hallelujah, 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 maybe there's a God above, but all I've ever learned from love was how to shoot somebody who outdrew ya. And it's not a cry that you hear at night, it's not somebody who's seen the light. Oh, then it's a broken hallelujah, hallelujah,
That was beautiful, Michael. So as the music was playing, we're going to actually have some speakers come up, and I was looking down at the list of speakers we're going to have come up. Such beautiful people, such amazing attributes rather. But I realize one of those attributes might not be brevity. So we're going to follow the path of the Oscars. So if anyone goes a little long, we're going to have Michael play you off over there. So you'll know it's time to wrap it up. So our first speaker is my dad's cousin, Anne Marie.
Is it afternoon? So good afternoon, everybody. To Marge, the entire Bergin family. Can't hear me? We can't have that. I'm glad to say I'm related to Al. So to start over, to Marge and the entire Bergin family, Sean and Meg, Aaron and Matt, Ryan, Jamie, Amy, Sue, and Susie. Joe and Susie. I knew, that's right, where is Susie? I really even practiced. And of course, we don't want to forget Trey. I know he's not here today. He's part of the group, right? And Al's many, many grandchildren who he loved dearly. Our thoughts are with all of you today and in the days going forward. We are gathered together today to celebrate the wonderful life we just saw of Al Bergin, husband, father, cousin, and friend. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Anne, or Anne Marie, as my cousins call me, McLaughlin Dodelman, and I am one of Al's cousins. I have known Al all of my life, and he has always been a part of all of our families. While many of the cousins are with us today, there are a few cousins that have gone before Al, and I am certain that Virginia, Tommy, and Franny, as well as Al's sister, Rita Virginia, were there to welcome him as he begins his next journey. I asked the cousins in preparation for today's tribute to tell me what they remember most about Al, or to share an experience that they had together. There are so many good memories, but not nearly enough time to share all of them today. Even when I walked in today and met Lisa, Lisa said, "Oh my gosh, we used to go somewhere, I don't know where we stayed, and we'd just go to the Poconos." It was our home. We had 6 kids, Al was number 7, and Al would call and say, "I'm coming with a few friends." And we would wake up the next morning and there would be more, and my parents just thought, you know, when you have 6 kids, it really doesn't matter. But it was always a pleasure and always great fun. While it was through blood that we were made cousins, it was by choice that we were made friends. Al had many talents, and I think Cousin Jean said it best. The phrase that I think sums up my relationship with Al is, you may not remember exactly what someone did or what they said, but you will always remember how they made you feel. I always felt better for having been in Al's company. According to the guys, the cousins, wonderful guy, sense of humor. And this story comes from a pre-LaSalle football game where Uncle Al, or Big Al, where he was known, and Uncle Fran were having a very political discussion. And that wasn't even in today's time. In the presence of Al and Billy, when suddenly little Al, as we refer to him, broke out singing "America the Beautiful." End of discussion. My brother James recalled a time when Al, was quite the tennis player, and he played in a tournament in the Poconos. And it was reported, although I don't know by whom, that one of his serves was 130 miles an hour. What a competitor for Roger Federer. For the McLaughlin family, Al's mother Rita was our mother Jean's sister. So the Bergins, Rita, Big Al, and Little Al, as he was known during his formative years, spent many family visits with us. Whether we were living in Dallas, Stroudsburg, or Mount Pocono, each location has at least one Al Bergin story. When we would get together as adults to visit, Al would always share an experience he enjoyed, or an experience he still couldn't remember that he had that experience when visiting with us. In Dallas, as young boys, Al and our brother Tommy, couldn't have been more than 9 or 10. And they got to go with our dad, Tom, to help out at an outdoor picnic, where they got to spend the day, imagine this, eating whatever they wanted and drinking as much soda as they could while working the soda fountain. Al always said, "What a glorious day that was." Or when visiting in our house in Stroudsburg, and our great Aunt Anna, some of you may have met Aunt Anna and have your own stories. But Anna, our mother, and Aunt Rita, Al's mom, decided the boys, again, Al and Tommy, should have jobs as caddies. So they put them in the car and they dropped them off at a resort, Shawnee, where they could be caddies for a day. But the something that you need to know about this day is up to that point, neither one of them had ever played golf. So as Al would tell the tale, they didn't get to caddy, they didn't earn any money, and then they had to hitchhike home on Route 80. What a day, he would say. When we lived in Mount Pocono, summer weekends almost always included visits from Al, and as I said, often many of his friends. At times it was the boys from the group home, just whoever Al decided needed to come along for the weekend, and we were always happy to have them. Cousin Jean said, when she thinks of Al, she thinks entertaining. So I'd like to share an example of Al the entertainer. We would be gathered together like any Irish family. We engaged in the Irish rituals of telling stories and singing songs, like you saw today. It's just who he is. So you could find Aunt Anna, Rita, our mom Jean, Mary Ellen, James, Jeannie, Franny, and I, telling tales, discussing politics or the events of the day, and all of a sudden, the singing would begin. Al might start us off with When Irish Eyes Are Smiling, or perhaps Hello Dolly, one of his mom's favorites. But we knew when Al would go over to the window seat and begin to grab a scarf. I saw the scarf picture. Placing it around his neck, we were in for a few Elvis songs. I'm sure many of you have witnessed Al's Elvis. Al did Elvis better than Elvis. Then we might be treated to Frank Sinatra, or a skit of some kind involving a few fashion changes. Again, I saw those pictures. All the while, everyone present laughing and singing along. Al was most entertaining and talented. He even beat out Johnny Carson, who was the talk show host of the day. The event usually ended when Al began to sing Danny Boy. Al had many talents. Cousin Susan put it nicely, saying, knowing Al, your dear husband and father, my entire life and our entire lives, enough accolades could not be written. He was by far a superman. His wonderful sense of humor was second to none. That Irish smile and twinkle in his eye will never be forgotten. Susan's dad, Francis Brannon, Uncle Fran as we knew him, would come home from many visits and stays with Al and Aunt Rita when he was working near Philly, and rave about Al's talents at LaSalle. Susan has said, and I know we all feel this, you will never listen to Ave Maria without hearing Al's angelic voice. More recently, over the last 4.5 years, we once again had the experience to enjoy time with our cousin Al. During the early period of Al's diagnosis, our brother Tommy, Father Tom, was also experiencing a fast-moving illness, and he died last year. But what's so exceptional was that Al and Marge moved to Drums, right outside of Wilkes-Barre. And Tommy, our brother, was living in Wilkes-Barre. Now I have to tell you the significance of that is because if you know our family and our family history, our grandmother Nellie Brannon, the Higgins and the Brannons, Al, the mother Rita, my mother Jean, Fran, James were the brothers. And they all lived in Wilkes-Barre at a place called 59 Frederick Street, or as we all knew it, over home. So it was always a place that the family, the grandparents, all referred to with great love and devotion. So here we were, less than a mile from 59 Frederick Street. I don't think that happened by mistake. I think it was someone's choice. But neither that, so we would visit. We would get together, and Al would go and visit Tommy. And often, all of us, Al, Tommy, James, Jeannie, Marge, and I, would go out for a meal together where we got to share more family stories, to do the best that we could. However, it is this memory that is shared with me by Al about an afternoon he spent with Tommy, just before Tommy's departure. And again, it speaks volumes of the kind of person that Al was, his kindness, his genuine affection for others. The memory and the tale was of the two of them, Al and Tommy, spending the day singing Beatles songs together. James Corden and Paul McCartney have nothing on Al Bergin and Tom McLaughlin. 2 weeks ago, my brother James, my cousin Jean, my sister Jeannie via Facebook, as she now lives in California, and I got to have another wonderful visit with Al and Marge. We spoke of his life and his current health decision. I told him I thought him to be courageous. He said no. It's about quality of life. And I have had a wonderful life. My family, my wife, my children, my friends, my cousin, my grandchildren, I have traveled. I have had a good life. It was his spirit of resilience and good humor that saw him through the pain and anxiety that life provided. As Cousin Susan recalled, family meant so much to him, as demonstrated in recent years. He did so much to keep us all in touch. However, circumstances did not always allow. We have lost a beautiful soul. We are fortunate to have been blessed with our dear Al in our lives. We will mourn his passing, but remember him as he would want us to. Al, we all love you very much, and we will miss you. Your humor, your kindness, and love will inspire us each day. When preparing this tribute, I found a quote from Ted Kennedy that he expressed at his brother Bobby's passing, and I thought perhaps that Ted had met Al. Love is not an easy feeling to put into words, nor is loyalty or trust or joy. But he, Al, was all of these. He loved life completely, and he lived life intensely. That was his gift to us, life, and we will remember him always until we meet again. We love you, Al.
You're down and troubled, and you need a helping hand, and nothing, oh nothing is going right. Just close your eyes and think of me, and soon I will be there. Brighten up even your darkest night. You just call out my name, and you know wherever I am, I'll come running
that old north wind should begin to blow. Just keep your head together. Call my name out loud. Soon I'll be knocking upon the door. You just call out my name, and you know wherever I am, I'll come running. Oh, yes, I will see you again. Winter, spring, summer, or fall, all you got to do is call, and I'll be there, yeah, yeah. Well, ain't it good to know that you've got a friend? He can be so cold, hurt you, desert you. Sink your soul and let them go. Don't you let them. You just call out my name, and you know wherever I am, I'll come running. See you again. You got a friend. You got a friend. Good to know you got a friend. Ain't it good to know you got a friend? Yeah, yeah. You got a friend.
All right, the first speaker from the Friends category is the friend who has had my dad in her life the longest. Margaret Brown Docherty, or as we all know and love her, Maggie.
I'll try to be short. It's not too long. Okay, Al Bergin had a presence that was larger than life. Al Bergin had a unique way of making everyone feel that he was their friend. Al Bergin, try to remember the Al I picture from his earliest days growing up on Woodlawn Avenue in Germantown. Al made me feel very special at every occasion, referring to me as his oldest friend. It was my great privilege to live in the middle of Woodlawn Avenue between the O'Donnell family and the Bergin family. I'm lucky to say that many of my neighbors from that street have been my greatest friends throughout my life. Even at a young age, as we saw on the shows, Al was a showman. He and John O'Donnell would put on shows written and produced by John's sister Joanne. I collected the 10 cents admission fee from all our neighborhood friends to get into the O'Donnell's cellar, aka theater, unfinished basement. We had so much fun. We went to Immaculate Conception Parish School and walked maybe 7 blocks to and from school, uphill both ways. Immaculate was the jewel of Germantown. We started first grade with 99 children in our classroom, with no preschool or no kindergarten experience. It was a miracle that anyone learned to read and write having Al Bergin in your classroom. Can you imagine being in class with him? His humor, wit, and ability to entertain a group was unbelievable. Al was subjected to being in the clothes closet for much of the day if the nuns could not control him. Many of them could not control him. I was one of the 98 that listened and was controlled. Al's family is very special to me. We were blessed to raise our children together. The fun and laughs we experienced made all of us feel like one big happy family. Al's business adventure, owning the Flowertown Swim Club, thank God, became our social heaven. Many of his friends and their families laughed and partied many days and evenings all together. All the children have such fond memories of the pool. Al was the originator of the famous Jocks and Jugs sporting event. We were about 15 to 20 couples playing on 4 different teams. The events ranged from basketball, the mile run, and the great haberdash race. All our children watched and cheered us on during this fun-filled, competitive weekend for adults and children. It was because of my son Chris and Marge's son Joe's suggestion that the Bergin Henley Bunch began. I was blessed to introduce Al and Marge. It was love and laughter immediately, a match made in heavens. For many of their 18, is it what, 18, did I get it right? For many of their 18 years together, Marge and Al's friends and family enjoyed many pool parties in Huntington Valley. When I reflect on my relationship with Al Bergin, I realized that I was closer to Al Bergin than my own brother. He saw me through thick and thin, marriages and divorce, good times and bad times. He gave me unbiased advice, and I have cherished his wisdom and incredible wit. Al accepted all my faults and talents and made me even laugh at myself. In closing, please try to remember his generosity, his wit, inspiration, kind heart, and unselfishness to the end. Al always wanted to be part of the solution, never to be the problem. He will be dearly missed. We love you.
Our next speaker also hails from the famous Woodlawn Avenue crew. Representing the O'Donnell family, which was also another family for my father, Joe O'Donnell, or as he's also known, Odie.
I got a call the other night, and Sean asked me to say a couple words. So I sat down and started writing, and the first thing I know, I had 11 pages. And I thought, how the hell am I going to deliver 11 pages without putting people to sleep? So if anybody's tired, I won't be insulted if you go to sleep. But I like to say, other than Maggie Brown and my sister, possibly my sister Joanne, I've probably known Al Bergin longer than anybody here. Al was always the little kid up the street that befriended my brother John, and Al almost lived in our house full time. But I always thought Al was a spoiled little kid. Al was an only child. Now he had an older sister, Rita Virginia, but unfortunately she died at 8 years old of leukemia. So, consequently, Al's parents were very solicitous to Al, and they had an open account down Herman's, which was the local candy store. And Al would go down there, and we would all be so jealous. I mean, he was such a spoiled kid. And he would buy sodas, and he would buy tasty cakes on an expense account. Now, the rest of us in the neighborhood, we were poor, so we wanted tasty cakes or whatever. We would get our wagons, and we would go around the neighborhood, and we would knock on doors, and it took a couple hours to do this. And we would collect newspapers and rags, and we would go to the local junkyard, and maybe, if we were lucky, we would get a quarter. And then we would run to Herman's, and we too would buy sodas and a tasty cake. So you can see why I thought that was spoiled. Anyway, the Bergins had behind their house, they had a driveway. And on the other side of that driveway, where other people thought that they had a little farm, and they planted tomato plants and lettuce and carrots. Well, the Bergins never planted anything. And everybody else had a steel fence, a little steel fence. But Mr. Bergin put in something that looked like a horse corral. So all the kids in the neighborhood are saying, Al Bergin's getting a pony. And we waited, 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 and the pony never materialized. So we were all very, very disappointed. Al, of course, was exceptionally witty and could tell great stories. And I'm not even going to try and tell an Al Bergin story because I neither have the wit nor wisdom to do so. However, I would like to tell one little story. It's when we were younger, and we used to go up to the Campbell Palatial Estate up in East Hampton. And everybody knows Pat Campbell, who's over there, has many, many, many talents. But being a maintenance man is not one of them. So, as a guest, Jimmy Doherty, who we all know, was Philadelphia's finest homicide detective. You know, in order to be a good guest, Jimmy would go around fixing things all weekend. Now, you would think Al would have noticed and given Jimmy a lot of credit for being a good guest. But instead, Al made up a little nickname for Jimmy, and he called him Homicide Houseboy. And he never did. So, in honor of Al, for the rest of the day, anytime anybody talks to Jimmy, I would like them to refer to Jimmy as Homicide Houseboy. Al had a wonderful life, but I would like to concentrate at this point on one special day, and that was the day that Al married Marge. And I'll never forget Sean getting up and referring to his dad as a Superman. You know, and I was in the audience, and I thought, you know, how true that is. Not only was Al a super father in raising Sean, Aaron, and Ryan, with help, of course, from Nancy, but you know, Al was super in everything he did, particularly sports. You know, I hate to say it, but Al was second to none in the neighborhood when it came to either throwing the football or catching the football. He was very agile for his size on the basketball court. Al was a very good golfer, but he really excelled in tennis, and I know he was great in tennis because he used to beat me all the time. I used to talk, or love to talk to Al about the old times in the neighborhood and the people that were in the neighborhood. You know, and Al had a special gift when it came to people. You know, Al would not only remember everybody's name, but he would remember every trait and every idiosyncrasy that people had. And he kind of put it in the back of his mind. And when he wanted to cut them down to size, you know, he would pull out that idiosyncrasy, and of course, in a very comical way, you know, really cut them to the quick. Al, of course, was not only super on the field, he was a super person as far as society goes. You know, Al had a great way of caring about people. And as I said, Al worked as a social worker. And you know, he worked with children who was very unfortunate, and Al spent his life doing whatever he could for those kids. And any of us here that got emails from Al could appreciate what was at the bottom of his emails. Now, I got a lot of emails from Al because politically we were on the other end of the scale. So those of us that you were subjected to our emails back and forth, I have to apologize. Anyway, at the bottom of Al's emails, it would always say, charity attempts to remedy today what justice could have prevented in the past. And that is very, very true. I would like to talk about one of my favorite poems, and that was a poem by John Donne called No Man is an Island. And it starts out, no man is an island entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. Now, Al never lived his life, you know, as an island. Al was very, very involved in society. He cared about people, and as we said before, he certainly took care of the unfortunate as much as he could. The poem goes on to say, every man's death diminishes me, because I am a part of mankind, and never sent to ask for whom the bell tolls. I'm sorry, Marie, I said send. Never send, my sister corrected me on this yesterday. Never send to ask for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee. You know, there's a couple of reasons why all of us in this room don't like to attend these events. Because we have to use words. And we have to go and talk to the family. And no matter what words we manage to come up with, they are so inept and inadequate and trite. Because whatever you say to the family, obviously, it's not going to bring their loved one back. Also, the second thing is these kind of events make us all think of our own mortality. You know, no matter how big or small, no matter how rich or poor, no matter how healthy or sick we may be, sooner or later, that bell is going to toll for us. And I, for one, it scares the hell out of me. The second thing about Al's wedding, other than Sean referring to him as Superman, was I was so impressed when Al got up, and you all witnessed it. I didn't know it was going to be part of the presentation today, but you all witnessed when Al sang one of my favorite songs from The King and I. And that song, I'm not going to embarrass myself by trying to sing it. However, you know, Al did such a beautiful job. But the song goes, I have dreamed that your arms are lovely. I have dreamed and enjoyed the view. I have dreamed every word you whisper when you're close to me. And Marge and Al have had such a wonderful, loving relationship. And I thought to myself, wow, why didn't I think of that? What a great way. What a great way to start a marriage. I mean, you know, Marge probably didn't complain about anything for 2 years after starting a marriage. Anyway, Al went on to not only be a great husband, but he became a great stepfather to Amy and Jamie and Joe. Forgot those first. Al eventually contracted both liver and colon cancer. And I've known many, many people over the years that either have liver cancer or colon cancer, and they died within sometimes months, sometimes within a year, maybe sometimes within 2 years. But Al lasted 4 years plus. And I credit that to not only Al's strong will and determination, but I also credit that to Marge. You know, Marge's expertise and guidance with her medical knowledge had Al live with those terrible diseases 4 years plus. Through my wonderful brother John, who's also no longer with us, and you know, we all miss dearly, because he was the talent of one of the family, besides my 3 sisters. Obviously, that leaves me with no talent. Anyway, Al became a very, very big part of our family. And I want to get back to something here. I would be remiss, you know, I know Nancy's here today, and I would be remiss if I didn't give Nancy a lot of credit for helping Al raise 3 beautiful, wonderful children. You know, through the years, my brother John and Al became the best of friends, and Al was a member of our family. You know, if I didn't come in the house and see Al sitting on the couch in my mom's air-conditioned home, we didn't have central, all we had was, you know, a little room air conditioner, and he'd be drinking, you know, my mom's milk, and Mrs. Brown would come down and say, "Get out, get out, get out. You're drinking the poor widow's milk." But it was nothing for Al to be sitting in our house, and you know, Al was truly one of the family. So on behalf of the O'Donnell family, which includes the Campbells and the Garveys, I would like to say we will greatly miss Al, and he will live forever in our memories.
All right, we'll take a stroll through Al Bergin's high school years and beyond, as remembered and experienced by his dear friend, Jack Schaller.
Al Bergin was a good friend of mine, and one of the longest tenured, and I use the term tenured intentionally here, given Al's long and checkered relationship with college. Longest tenured and one of the closest people in my life. Once Al made a friend, he never let it go, as everyone in this room can attest to. Al's obviously well known for his sense of humor and for the innumerable stories. If each of us here today were to recount just one or two of those stories, we'd be here till mid-October. But Al Bergin was also a seeker. Al had a way of asking questions which revealed who he was and what was important to him. In putting together an answer to his questions, which I wound up doing frequently, the answer revealed something not only about Al, but about the person who was asking. I have two stories to share about Al's questions. The first occurred during one of our famous walks to Chubby's Steaks on Ridge Avenue, when we were roommates at the Mayfair House, and both of us were sophomores at LaSalle College. Al asked me, "Jack, how much money do you expect to make once you graduate from LaSalle and have a career?" Thinking I was being very clever, I answered, "You know, Al, I would like to make 2 times my age by the time I'm settled into a career." At that time, I was 19 years old. Al was flabbergasted, and I suspect he thought I was a raging capitalist at that point. And he reminded me of that conversation about every 5 years, to his great amusement and mine. For the record, I am 69 now, and I have never once earned twice my age. Maybe that makes me a failed capitalist. The second story about Al's questions occurred more recently, when my wife and I and the Hogans visited Al and Marge up in Drum for a weekend. As before, Al's question was focused again on where he was at that point in his life. He asked me, "What do you think happens when we die?" For the sake of brevity, and to spare Marge, Polly, and Hogan and Lisa from having to endure this conversation again, I will just say that my answer and the follow-up questions that he had and the ensuing back and forth lasted until 4:30 in the morning and consumed 2 bottles of Jameson's in the Everyone except Al and I, perhaps wisely, had long since gone to bed, or in Hope's case, had passed out. I believe both Al and I were satisfied with the answers to the questions at that time. I have a simple story that relates to that conversation. A squirrel was foraging nuts up near a cliff. Without noticing it, he gets too close to the edge and he falls off. As he is fumbling, tumbling, head over heels, a sparrow flies by and says, "Hey, squirrel, whatever are you doing? Are you okay?" With a worried look on his face, the squirrel says, "So far, so good." At the moment the sparrow speaks to the squirrel is in fact good. However, not so many seconds after that comes the bottom, where he will hit. Then what is the question? If he lands in a big pile of leaves with only a bent tail, the squirrel has had his first practice at dying. A writer friend of mine suggests we have probably been practicing dying, that is, approaching the unknown, for all of our lives without really realizing it. The first day of kindergarten, the first inoculation from a needle, a first visit to the dentist, being in front of a classroom, giving a speech for the first time, meeting new friends, starting college, moving away from home. All of these firsts that we experience and all of the normal fears and anxieties that generate from those experiences help us to build the confidence and the trust that we can handle whatever comes our way. Like dying, for instance. Experience and faith helps us understand there is nothing we have done or can do where we are totally alone. This crowd of people here today most certainly illustrates that. Just because you may feel alone in a situation with fear and uncertainty doesn't mean that you are alone. You are not alone. You are never alone. Like the squirrel found out, there's always a pile of leaves at the bottom, whatever you may choose to call that pile. There's a poem called Surrender that ties together this thought for me. There I was on the edge, looking over the ledge, feeling like the face of a clown. I said to God, I gotta know before I jump, what's below? And God said, I'll tell you on the way down. Al's life experiences and the huge circle of friends whom he embraced with his love and who loved him back gave him the courage to jump. And I'm absolutely certain he landed in a very soft and supportive pile of leaves at the bottom, as will we all.
The next speaker and my father met in 9th grade, and the rest is history. There's actually a new age term for their relationship. The two of them have had a serious multi-decade bromance. Jimmy Doherty, or as we all know him, Doc.
That is a true story that he told me. And Al never failed to mention that on many occasions. I'm here, and I'm going to be very quick. We've listened to some fantastic speakers before me, and I know it's wonderful that everyone is here, and I just have just a few things to say about Al. As Shauna mentioned, we met in 9th grade. Even though we went to LaSalle High School for 4 years, neither of us were ever in the same class. We had lunch together. But from that, we both learned that we were both from Germantown. Al was from East Germantown, I was from West Germantown. And subsequently, I learned that his real name was Aloysius. And I figured that anybody that could learn how to spell the name Aloysius has to be a good guy to get to know. So he and I got to know each other, and eventually one of the funny tales, one of the first experiences dealing with him in a funny way was in our junior year, I had a car to use periodically to go to school. Well, when we got out of school, we all had places to go afterwards. But you had to park the car in the back of the South parking lot. Well, Al, being from East Germantown, was not the area we drove through to get to West Germantown. But he knew that there would be traffic outside in the running lane trying to get out on Cheltenham Avenue from LaSalle. So instead of going out the back doors, which we all had to do to get to our cars, Al would run out the front door and camp himself down there right before you got to Cheltenham Avenue, and then jump in the car. So then I had to go to East Germany. So we had a great time through high school, and actually when we graduated, I was able to find us jobs at a place called the National Rolling Mills, which was out in Paoli. And we started there, and when we started, we took the job working the midnight to 8 shift because we got paid 12 cents more an hour. And on top of that, Al, being the committed student that he was, he had some obligations to take care of in the morning hours and the afternoon hours while we were working. So what we would do is I'd pick him up at his mom and dad's house. And as somebody alluded to earlier, Al was special to them. I was lucky to have a hamburger for dinner. When I got to Al's house, he couldn't leave until his mom made him sit there and eat a steak. She said, "You're going to work hard tonight. You need your energy." I'd sit there and watch. Anyway, we would finish work, and then we'd have to hustle back, and because he had these other obligations, I would drive to his house, and on the way down the expressway, he would take off his sweaty clothes and have a big giant can of Right Guard and spray himself as we would go down. I can't begin to tell you the number of truckers that honked at us as we went down the expressway. And the problem was, traffic wasn't real fast. It was relatively slow, so we got the same guy honking a lot. So we would get to Al's house. Al would drop me off at his house. I would take a blanket and go lay in his backyard, waiting, apparently where the horse was supposed to be coming. Al would go take care of his obligations in the morning, and then his early one in the afternoon, and then come back to give me my car so I could go home and sleep for a few hours before we started the ritual once again. At this National Rowing Mills, there were three groups of people basically working there. There were the white guys, there were the black guys, and there were Hispanic guys. And each group was pretty much segregated amongst themselves when we ate lunch. However, this one time, we worked on the end of a assembly line. And if any of you have ever seen the Lucy show, where she's there with eating the cakes and everything as they're going down the line, what happened in this thing was this big machine down the line would chomp out some stuff out of the steel, send it down. At the bottom end of the line would be two guys, one at one end of the table, the other at the bottom end. The guy at the top was supposed to take out every other piece, inspect it. If it's good, put it on the table. If it wasn't, put it in a barrel. And the guy at the bottom end, he would therefore still only have every other piece to deal with. Well, periodically, Al would be at the top end, and I'd be at the bottom end. And invariably, the supervisors would disappear around 3 in the morning for about an hour. Once Al knew that they weren't around, he'd bend over like he had an itch or tie his shoe. Well, that meant all of these pieces of steel are coming to me, and I'm at the end of the line, trying like hell to keep things going. And Al would be there looking, and he'd have everybody falling on the floor laughing. Well, later that summer, what happens is this one night, Al was at the bottom of the line, and this Hispanic guy was at the top. And the Hispanic guy fell asleep. Just like this. And now Al's at the bottom end, and I was on a different line, so I'm just watching from a distance. Now it was my turn to laugh. Al's there trying to jockey everything. And eventually, a supervisor does wander in. He sees the poor guy sleeping, doesn't wake him up. He goes off and gets another supervisor. So now, 2 supervisors. Al, in the meantime, he is saturated in sweat. So finally, what happens is the poor guy got fired. Well, 2 nights later, one of the black guys came to me and told me, "Listen, your buddy, you got to stay near him. The Hispanic guys are going to stick him." And there was no doubt in our minds that this was a true story. So what would happen is we'd break for lunch at 4 in the morning, go outside and sit on a lawn, on a hill actually. And from that time on, for the last 2 weeks we were there, we were surrounded. The black guys liked us, so they surrounded us and kept the Hispanic guys from everything. But needless to say, how fast we got out of there each morning to get out on his way to his other obligations. So, we had a history of getting each other jobs. Eventually, Al was working at the Green Tree School teaching, and they needed a painter. So I had just come back from Virginia, and he said, "You can paint. Come on over and start painting." So I started painting the Green Tree. The next thing I knew, Green Tree needed a substitute teacher. I was the substitute teacher. So needless to say, it was a special school, and we were kind of special workers. So, as time went on, Al hired me actually to go work at the halfway house in Germantown. He hired me as the cook, because he knew I knew how to cook. I knew how to cook hot dogs and baked beans. Eventually, through trial and error, we did get, none of the kids starved. That was a good thing. And then as time went on, he and I just had, we had a great relationship, super special relationship. As Jack showered us up before, I'm sure if anyone wants to ask him, remembers when I would visit Al at Mayfair House where they lived, they had an open door policy back then. They never locked their door. I would get there sometimes 2, 3, 4 in the morning. Jack would see me coming, he would take his pillow and his blanket and go out to sleep in the hallway because he knew what was going to happen next. Invariably, it was my one chance because Al was a considerably bigger person than I was. So I had to take every advantage I could with Al. And what I would do is there he'd be, sound asleep in bed, and I would go in and dive on top of him. And when that would break out, an hour-long struggle throughout this whole apartment. Many things falling over, and poor Jack outside sleeping saying, thank God I'm not part of this. If any of you remember in the earlier video, Al said he was there 6 times that he knows that I said I give up. And they were the only times in my life I said I give up. They were all each at his hands. Because invariably, he would get me in a position and convince me that if I wanted a seat tomorrow, I had to say I give up. But just a couple of things I just would like to pass on because everybody that's spoken has spoken so eloquently about Al, about his family. And I just want to say, I was trying to think, what kind of words could I use to describe Al? And there are no real words. He was an unbelievable person. But one of the words that I thought of is the word phenomenal. And when I looked it up to see exactly what it meant, it said extraordinary, outstanding, exceptional. And when something is so great, call it phenomenal. Highly extraordinary. I think that word describes Mr. Bergin, Mr. Aloysius J. Bergin, to a T. The other thing I would like to say about Al, there was a quote from a book, or several books, and a movie. It was written about St. Thomas More, Sir Thomas More. And in it, there were many lines in there that I think really reflect what Al Bergin was. And the main focus of this book, or the main focus of this whole thing with St. Thomas More was he was a man for all seasons. And Al Bergin was a man for all seasons. And one last thing, Marge, I would like to say to you, Al was full of class. And when he met you, he met a woman full of class. And what you two have had has been very, very special. Thank you.
Next up, we have a group here that's actually a couple. And this is a couple that I'd be hard-pressed to go back through our lives and through the lives of our family to find any of those incredibly happy, loving memories that they weren't right there for us. So the next speaker is going to be Eileen and Kevin O'Rourke. Who's first? Eileen O'Rourke.
Well, I'm glad I put on my waterproof mascara today. There we go. Okay. So, I wasn't going to do this one, but I will. So, Jerry Seinfeld did a skit maybe 20 years ago, probably longer, where he said that there was a study that found that among people, public speaking was their #1 fear, and dying was #2. In other words, they'd rather be in the casket than giving a eulogy. I really don't feel that way, but it was pretty funny. So on that note, good afternoon to everyone, and to Marge, Sean, Megan, Erin and Matt, and Ryan, Amy, Jamie, and Joe and Susie for inviting me to honor Al's memory today. And for those of you who are at Tim Paul's service, don't worry, I won't be playing a Neil Diamond song today. So several famous people have died in the last couple of weeks. We had John McCain, veteran and politician, Aretha Franklin, singer, entertainer, and playwright Neil Simon, and just Burt Reynolds. They certainly had a long list of famous, well-connected, prominent, distinguished rich men and women speaking at their services. Al has us. But they cannot match our sadness in knowing that we won't be sharing more laughs in person with our friend Al. Instead, we are here to remember Al the way he would want us to, with laughter and joy, and recognizing a life well lived. In that spirit, I'm going to recount a few stories that we've had, and somebody else had said we would be here until October, Jack, if we did every story we ever had. So March, Kevin and I were in Florida one time at a PGA golf course, and Al hit his hole-in-one. There's a picture on one of the tables over there. And when he picked the ball out of the hole, it was all dirty and scuffed and a mess. I said, Al, you play with a ball like that? Most people would throw it in their practice bag. And he looked at me like, what are you talking about? Why would I do that, with his eyebrow raised? And Phil Mickelson, you know, he even blamed an errant putt because there was a speck of dirt and a dimple in a ball. And yet Al was able to make a hole-in-one with a dirty, scruffy, dimpleless golf ball. Al did a terrific Elvis imitation, as was mentioned earlier, but when Elvis died, he said he wouldn't do it anymore. We were all just appalled. How could you not do this anymore? It's a shame if you never saw him or heard him do Elvis. He had the lip curl, the hip bump, and voice down to a T, giving us a perfect jailhouse rock, but without the glittering jumpsuit, thank God. Now change the scene to the Doherty backyard for one of the many parties. Al, well into the evening, knew that it was time to entertain us. So he got one of Doc's lights, one of your car lights that you hang from the hood of the car. It's surrounded by a wire cage, so to speak, with a hook. And he started singing the Tant Tu Mergo, but in a Bill Murray lounge-like voice. Tantum ergo sacramentum vene remor cernui. And he has the light, and he's flicking it like it's incense. And we're all there, we're all going to hell, we're all going to hell. And Mrs. O'Donnell was making the sign of the cross 10 times. But she's sitting in the front row. She's like, I can't believe this. Oh my God. If you're not a Catholic or you've never been to a benediction, you'll just have to use your imagination. Al had hand-eye coordination like nobody else I ever met. If you played tennis with him, you were running side to side, back court to the net, and to the back again, and he never moved. And we would just keep hitting the ball right back to him. Why did we do that? Because then he would put it in the exact opposite end of the court from wherever we were. It was quite amazing. We enjoyed many vacations with Al in March. St. Martin's next to the airport with the ambient smell of jet fuel. And the house rumbling as the engines were roaring at 4 a.m. Eaglesmere in the Poconos in autumn, playing golf and relaxing. Port St. Lucie, where he had his all-in-one, and he even enjoyed a boat ride. Cooperstown to the Baseball Hall of Fame, where I sat on the console of his Lincoln Continental back and forth, of course no seatbelt. That wasn't that long ago. The Viking River Cruise, where we went from Paris to Normandy. He with the life jacket on in the lounge, which we closed every night. And the piano player from Czechoslovakia was certainly glad to have somebody singing along as he played. The email condolences that we got were just all the same that you've heard over and over again. The funniest person I ever met. Always made me laugh. Karen and Mike Tooman can't be here today because her mom, Mrs. Bergin, believe it or not, passed away in her services today in upstate New York. But Karen wrote, Al was a sweetheart and the world will suffer from the loss of such a great guy. Please extend our sympathies to all the fellow jocks and juggers. Boy, did we have some fun. When I think of Al, I think of him and Tim hiding me under your kitchen table, our kitchen table, saving me, the suburban housewife, from Doc, homicide housewife, friend because she threw an egg and nailed him. A raw egg and nailed him. It makes me smile just to remember those great days. We've watched our kids grow up together. Brendan and Sean are the same age. Aaron and Kevin are the same age. Kelly and Ryan cover both ends, the oldest and the youngest. His greatest joys were watching his young children, so proud of his adult children, and loving all of his grandchildren, Audrey, Luke, Claire, Emma, Jack, Neve, and Oren. So to bring this to a close, we could all go on forever once again. One last story. Our daughter Kelly was about 3 years old. We were sitting there eating dinner, and Kevin and I were lamenting the fact that Big Al was moving to Chicago. All of a sudden, Kelly puts her head down on her folded arms and is just sobbing and sobbing. We looked at each other like, why is she so sad? And we asked her why. And she said, why is he moving away? I don't want him to go. Then we realized she didn't know we were talking about Al Meltzer, the sportscaster, and not Big Al, our friend. Well, we don't want Papa Doc to go either, but he fought the good fight. We will miss him in so many ways. But as Tim McGraw sang, I'm not going to sing this one, the love and the laughter will live on long after. All of the sadness and the tears will meet again, my old friend.
The next up, if anybody has seen his t-shirt, I mean, it's a world-class t-shirt. This is Kevin O'Rourke, otherwise known as a person of interest.
I know this is going to come as a complete shock to everybody, but before I had my sex change operation, Al was my first love. He loved me. What an honor it is to be asked to share my memories of a man who has been my best friend for 50 years. What greater legacy can a person have than for people to say, Al made us laugh? Any gathering, no matter the occasion, instantly became better when Al Bergin arrived on the scene. Allow me to share with you just a few of the memorable stories surrounding my life with Al. I can't begin to count the number of nights we hung out my back deck, sharing macanudos and Jameson. Al would be so happy there, he refused to go to the trouble of going upstairs to use the bathroom. So he would just go off the back deck. Usually in the exact spot where my wife Eileen had planted a special bush to honor her recently deceased favorite brother, Dennis. Al never missed the Dennis bush. Eileen, who has the greenest of green thumbs, could never understand why Dennis's bush grew so quickly and so long. I knew the reason why. Proof positive that everything Al came into contact with grew and prospered. I recently shared a great Al story via email, which involved Al and my mom, who passed away a few years ago. We had a typical Irish wake right here at the Flowertown Country Club. I have 6 sisters, and Al, who along with Marge would invite my mom over to share the hot tub with some Grand Marnier, would try to goad Mom into admitting that she must have had a favorite daughter. With perfect timing and a great sense of drama, Al announces at the wake that Mrs. O'Rourke did indeed have a favorite daughter, and her name was, oh, Danny Boy. It's ironic that a story recently appeared in the Inquirer about the beautiful covered bridge at Valley Green following the requisite, It's ironic that a story recently appeared in the Inquirer about the covered bridge at Valley Green. Following the requisite amount of Jameson, Al would give me this look of superiority saying, you are only one of probably thousands of people who have run the Forbidden Drive to the covered bridge. I, on the other hand, am the only one who drove it. What happened was, after the 8th weekend, I think he was with Dick Jennings, Chris Ryan, Gene Caffrey, a lot of Jamisons. Al decided it'd be a good idea to drive the Forbidden Drive. He drove his Mercedes to the bridge, drove over the bridge, it didn't collapse, came home all the time, I'm sure, smoking cigars and drinking Jamisons. Unbelievable. I know we're in a lot of pain right now, so I apologize, because I am going to make that pain worse by singing a song that I wrote for Al. Some Irish whiskey and 2 icy glasses, 2 Macanudos, dripping lots of ashes. A hot tub steamy rings, these lovely things remind me of Al. A beaming Irish face that's full of laughter, old memories to recall, both now and after. Golf clubs, perfect swing, these lovely things remind me of Al. I'm sorry, I'm not done, I can't. Al came, we left, he loved us all. Now he's no longer here, so it's okay to shed a tear. Al loved his kids so much, it's hard to fathom. And they loved him right back like Eve loved Adam. And now the heavens sing, these lovely things remind me of Al. Thank you.
I've never actually used Twitter, but that I would file that under. We've had a pretend hashtag going around our house recently. I'm glad my kids are outside. It was hashtag sad shit, so that's more sad shit. Thank you, Kevin. The next speaker is, if my dad had a younger brother, which he didn't, I would picture his younger brother to be Bob, and not in a silly, nor in a subordinate way, but in the way that I know of loving my brother. So, Bob.
After that magnificent performance, that courageous singing of Kevin's, I have to tell you, it's easy to sing if you're Al. It takes real guts to try to He's magnificent. Those of you who are at Network that Maggie organized Al's 50th birthday party. And Kevin also displayed a magnificent, heroic effort in that he came up with a song, the Eric Clapton song. And the song is about 3 or 4 minutes. And Kevin got up to the microphone and played the song, and he only knew 2 words of the song. And the song was Alberta, Alberta. But Kevin, in all of his cleverness, decided that it should be Bergin, Bergin. So I was just so amazed that Kevin had it in him to stand up there and in an utter and complete act of love, made us all laugh without. And I saw this, Sean asked me to talk, and I was kind of nervous about it, and because I thought I was Al's best friend, and I would be the only speaker. I got really nervous. And I talked to Gene and Jack during the week, and I asked them, and they said they were going to speak to him. What's going on here? I'm his best friend. I prepared some words. I started on this some time ago, and actually I have, and I need your help on this. I have 2 talks. One is splendid. It has a lot of funny stories. It's eloquently written, and it takes 30 minutes. I have another one that's just 5 minutes, and it's kind of scruffy. It's not too funny. So I need your help. You need to let me know. Would you like me to give a 30-minute presentation? It's really good, honestly.
Email.
I'll put it on Facebook. Jack has developed this wonderful instrument where we can continue talking to one another, and you got to check out. Please go there. Al had the one, I think his most beloved friend, Tim Paul, is on there, and it's at the wedding, and it's a tribute to Marge and Al. And if you can imagine, this is a former Christian brother who Al loved dearly, who, in his tribute to Marge and Al getting married, stuffed his cheeks with cotton and did a perfect Marlon Brando imitation of The Godfather. So please check in on that video. It's kind of worth it. It's not as good as Jimmy's entire It's not good. When Sean asked me to talk, I was honored, and I went through some notes, and I showed my wife this wonderful poem by Ralph Waldo Emerson. One of our Al's dear friends had read his funeral, and I showed it to my wife, and she said, Bob, you better come up with some funny stories. This is Al's memorial service. I first met Al at an orphanage where we worked, and Al showed me how to take care of things. He took care of me and showed me how to get along with people. In case you haven't noticed, I needed somebody like that. And he especially liked Israel Gonzalez. He was a Mexican boy. He was short for his age. He was barely 5 foot tall when he was 16. And Al took special protective care of Israel. And it was something I noticed, and it was something that was a theme throughout Al's life. This was also a time when Al took his first of, I think, 4 sabbaticals from the South. Most people think that a sabbatical is a time for retreat, to think about the important things in life and get away from the academic rigors. And Al did all those, but he also just bought a 65 Mustang that he needed to pay for. So he got a job at the hub. And he did do a formal study with during this time. He was studying the effects of the secretion of estrogen that convertibles would cause.
What are the results of that study?
Kevin, you could have gone either way. I don't know. But I would like to talk to you as one of Al's friends, and I'd like to talk to you about the things I thought were precious in his friend. When I first met Al, I actually didn't have a whole lot of friends, but then Al introduced me to people. I think you all may have presumed that since Al liked me, I was probably okay. It's a little weird, I grant you that. But then I met this geometric progression, all these wonderful people. And over the years, you've all welcomed me, not always into your homes, I can understand that. But you've welcomed me, and it has, I felt loved and accepted. And in some ways, that was Al's greatest present to me, you. He introduced me to some of the most wonderful people in my life. And he's not around anymore to tell you that I'm okay. But Sean and Ryan and Aaron, they, and March, they can, maybe not, but Sean and Ryan and Aaron, you're the best reflection of a wonderful man. He delighted in this show. By the way, we have this egg competition, and I get kind of teary. I came in third one year and broke down during the group talk. So there's some probability that my wife may come up here and take my quiz. I can't get through this. The one thing I thought of as I think about you guys is he had faith in you. He had faith that you would grow up to be the wonderful people that your mom and your dad worked on. He had faith that you would be true, that you would figure it out. I have a kind of irreverent and funny story about golfing with the Suns and Ryan's ability to hit a ball out of sight. And I said to Al, we were in a competition, I turned to Al and I said, Al, give me a break, you know? Ryan can hit the ball so far, but he hits it over there and the hole's over there. And can you please tell him just to pretend that the hole's over there? And he said something I'll always remember. He said, I said, Jim, don't you give your kids advice? And he said, only when they ask. Because he knew. He knew. And Matt and Megan, he was so glad to have met you, and that you were part of this team to raise these wonderful grandchildren. Marge, I hope, as soon as they met, he was smitten. Gina and I met with Al a few weeks ago, and we talked to him about the important things in life, and Al told me that he, of course, loved Marge, but in some ways, and I don't think I'm much offering this, he admired her a whole lot. He told us how Marge had suffered the widowhood, and she had gone through and raised these three wonderful kids, and most remarkably through a guy who took multiple sabbaticals. She had gotten a master's in nursing. He felt that was so, and he admired you so, he loved you so. Moreover, Marge is a golfer's dream. Yeah, she can golf, but she doesn't take it too seriously. Doesn't kind of grounds Al, and Marge would take care of the dog when Al wanted to go to Florida. You can't get a better one than that. But more and more, Al got concerned about Marge's television watching habits. You guys may know where I'm going with this. At night, they would watch cable TV, you know, and Al would watch it and try to discern logic and the patterns of arguments and pick out qualities of good thinkers. And Marge seemed to think that it was a call-in show without a telephone, that these panels of people actually cared what Marge thought. She would talk to, like the television had ears, you know, and she would talk to the TV. And when somebody said something particularly stupid, she acted like the TV was hard of hearing, and she would yell at the TV. Al used to meet on Thursdays, and Al told us that story with much love and affection and respect. Oh, by the way, my talk was about 12 paragraphs long. Where's Odie? So Odie covered number 2, number 3, number 4 paragraphs. Thanks, Joe. Yeah. But Al loved his bride. Al would, when we asked Al, would you like to come out and play? Al would always say the same thing. Yeah, but I got to check in with my bride. It wasn't that, it was kind of a pretense. We knew that he was going to come and play. But I wanted you to know two things. One, that he loved and utterly respected this woman he was married to. And two, I forgot. There's another thing. I went off script. That sound is the sound of a wife and sister cringing over there. About a month ago now, Al called me. I was driving down San Henry Avenue. He told me that the oncologist had said that the tumor had grown. And he said that he wasn't going to fight it anymore. And what did I think of it? And I said, Al, listen, man, whatever you say goes. You're a leader. You have to show us how to do this. Those of us who aren't going to die really haven't seen this come up much in our life. Anyway, Al handled all this. He showed me the way. Never whined. Never complained. He was magnificent in his last act. He was brave. He never made us feel bad for him. He always let us know that he was okay with it. And in this and in so many ways through the years, Al showed us the way.
All right, so we have Gene, and then there's only 7 more. So if I think of Bob as a younger brother of my dad, I think of Gene as an older brother and a mentor. And whenever any of us in our family are having any issue or thinking of any business venture or working on anything difficult that requires such care and such shrewdness, my dad's first comment is always, well, why don't you see if you can meet or talk with Gene? So my dad's longtime great friend and mentor, Gene Caffrey.
Can you hear me? Well, I'm getting my papers together here. I just wondered, is there anybody else who puzzled over that backpack?
Real quick, my last day with Al, Martin said I got 6 hours, so I put in here some music, my computer, Vanity Fair. I was going to do all this stuff with him. And it was all in this backpack. Sorry, Jim. And here's the point. Hey, listen, this is what a cleanup hitter does. He allows everybody else to get on base so he can hit a home run. Right? Here's the point. When Al told me first, the doc said he had 4 months. And he didn't. He only had 2 weeks. So don't take your backpack around without getting it to the people that you love. Tell them your stories. Tell them how much. I was the first person to tell me, oh, gee, I'm so sorry. But I was the first male in my life to tell me I love you. And he goes, I was so taken aback that I said to Al, and I love you too.
I could really make this short if I eliminated from my prepared remarks everything that has been said before. In fact, I don't think I have anything to say. But since I worked on it, I'll read it anyway. It's not going to be as funny as some of these hilarious presentations before, but that's to be expected, I guess, from it. Here goes. As we all get older, I think it becomes clear to many of us that a successful life is not measured by fame, fortune, or power, or even by good deeds done, but by the quality of our relationships with family and friends. By this golden measure, Al Bergin lived an enviable life. Let's start with his family. At about the time Al learned he had cancer, he began calling me periodically to check. I assume he did the same with some of you. After exchanging medical bulletins, our conversations would drift to other more important things. He talked a lot about his family, and it was all good. While he hated that his illness made him so dependent on Marge, he was in awe of her selflessness and her constancy. At one point, Marge told Bob McIntyre and me that she considered it an honor to care for someone she loved. I have to think that were the roles reversed, Al would have felt the same way. Meeting Marge was surely one of the turning points in his life. And he loved his kids, and Marge's kids, and was proud of them. He knew that Sean would always be able to take care of himself and would go through life guided by a well-functioning moral compass. He cried a little bit when he told me of Erin's support and how she learned of his illness with the instinctive reaction that they would kick cancer's ass. He was very comfortable with and proud of Ryan's growth and evolving strength of all sorts. And though I hardly knew Marge's kids, he talked about them as though they were his own and I should know what was going on in their lives. He considered himself to have won the lottery by being so fond of the spouses his children had chosen. And his brood of grandchildren constantly fed Al's hunger for fun and gave him a sense of renewal. When I was in graduate school, hold on a second, I'm a little allergic today. This is not good. When I was in graduate school, I took a seminar with a woman who was one of the first to study death and dying. The class was small, and we students sat behind a one-way mirror as Dr. Ross interviewed dying patients and their families. It was agonizing to watch. Not because of the pain or fear of the dying person or the sadness of the families, but because of the unresolved family issues that the patient was struggling to work through, often without success. I think I can say without doubt that Al died without any such unresolved issues, that he was ready to let things go. I was happy for him. And now for his friends. Your attendance here today is a testament to the vast array of friends that Al made during his lifetime. There are friends here from the old Germantown neighborhood, from grade school, high school, college. There are business friends. There are friends from Jocks and Jugs, 8 friends, tennis friends, golf friends, singing of friends, Jameson friends. Al was a wonderful friend to me. He was fun to do things with, good to talk to, and so damn funny, professionally funny. He made me laugh more than anyone I have ever known. His humor was part Jackie Gleason, Don Rickles, Johnny Carson. I even saw him do a great Henny Youngman routine at a wedding event. And he could tell a great, great story. Like all accomplished comedians, Al's humor was based on an uncanny awareness of human foibles and idiosyncrasies, particularly those humans at whom he was directing his humor. Believe me, I know that from first-hand experience. And Al's use of language was brilliant. His one-liners were like perfectly aimed darts. And the imagery in his stories was worthy of Richard Pryor. His ability to make me laugh continued through the end of his life. I hope there are no priests or nuns or others in this audience who will be offended by this story. But anyway, and I hope the story is not just funny to me. But not more than a week or so before he died, Al, Bobby Mack, and I were talking about assisted suicide, which, as you know, is not legal in Pennsylvania. Al said if it were legal, he'd set it up for the next day. The discussion involved to the church's position on suicide, which Al felt was pig-headed and without understanding of the pain that a peaceful death could relieve. At one point, he grunted and said, not only don't they understand, but then they throw a freaking mortal sin on top of it. Of course, but Al was not just fun and games. He was serious and sentimental. He was an avid reader, and he loved to discuss big issues. I had to smile the other day when Erin described herself as a young girl sitting anxiously at the Bergin dinner table, waiting for her turn to give her hastily formed opinion on Al's topic of the day. One big topic Al was pretty clear on, I think, was the afterlife. He did not believe in the deity, in heaven or hell. Although I remember him improvising a great routine about Galileo down in hell, where he'd been condemned for his heretical teachings about the solar system, getting really pissed when he found that the Earth really does revolve around the sun. I share Al's belief in the afterlife, but I know that there's a place where Al can go on being Al for as long as we shall live. And that place is in our hearts. Thank you.
All right, only two more. Serious this time. We're so fortunate to call this next group of speakers our brothers and our sister. And we are so fortunate our children call them Aunt Amy, Uncle Jamie, and Uncle Joe. Sorry, I jumped the gun here. We're doing another song. You'll know who's up next, so you don't need to see me before they come.
Trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you. myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue, and clouds of white, a bright blessed day, dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people passing by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry, and I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes, I think to myself, what a wonderful world. All right, we're going to bring the grandkids up, and they're going to shake some stuff while we sing. Feel free to sing along on this one, too. Just like we practiced it, guys. You guys ready? There is a season, turn, 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 and there's time to every purpose under heaven. A time to be born, a time to die, a time to plan, a time to reap, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to laugh, a time to weep. To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a
like how I tricked you, I said one more, but it was 3 actually. And then one more group of 3, and then we're going to end with a psalm. Thanks so much for everyone for all your patience and all your time today.
Let me just start by saying, Bob, I did not straighten that golf swing out. We tried yesterday. Thank you all for being here. We've titled this The Wisest Man in the World. There are many people with a higher IQ than Dad, many with more money, many with more accomplishments, but we believe our dad to be the wisest man we've ever met. And while you already know him, we'll tell you a little bit more about why we feel this way. The story starts for us with winning what we call the ovarian lottery. That is, some individuals, by no choice or control of their own, are born into privilege, while others are born into squalor. The concept goes on that those born into privilege are put on the fast track, the best schools, mentors, all the resources privilege can afford. Those born to squalor, or taken to an extreme, slavery, suffice it to say, have a more difficult path to prosperity. And prosperity can have many different definitions: money and power, but more importantly, love and happiness. In short, as we told Dad on multiple occasions over the last months, Sean, Aaron, and I won the ovarian lottery and being able to call Al Bergin our dad. What a way to start life. As you all know, your lottery ticket is pulled, and there you are as a baby with your family. At a young age, you love your parents innately, but as you grow, you start to learn about these monumental figures, which at the time are your entire world. In early childhood, we got to know this compassionate, funny, kind, and loving father. We felt and learned of his love not just by his unforgettable, endearing blue eyes looking at you, but by his actions and the time he spent with us. The old saying, "My presence is your present," was truly accurate with our father. He was there for all of our events, whether it was coaching basketball, baseball, watching TV together, tickling us, perpetually making us laugh, taking vacations, etc. And we were there for his events: Ache, Jocks and Jugs, tennis matches, and the many impromptu parties, which you've all heard about at the Dockeries, O'Rourke's, and Showers, or visits with his cousins up in the mountains. It is said you learn by experience and observation. My dad showed us he held his kids paramount by always being there. Not only by telling us, but by showing us we were his number one. And we started to learn not only how he treated us, but in our observation of how he treated others. In early life, we learned through experience and living day by day with our parents. We grew up hearing of all the adversities our dad had been through in his life. My dad lost his sister when he was a very young boy. I recall a story my grandmother used to tell us that Dad asked her why Rita Virginia, his sister, went to heaven. And my grandmother said to him, "Because God wanted her." He simply replied to her, "Didn't God know that I wanted her more?" This devastating loss of his young sister caused his father to be admitted into a mental hospital for a nervous breakdown. Later in his life, at age 19, our dad found his father passed away at home while his mother was traveling overseas. We heard of these stories, but they were not as impactful at the time without the surrounding experience and observation. It wasn't until we observed our dad for the first time in a very difficult situation for all of us, which was our parents' divorce. While Dad had made many mistakes, I'm sure his life, his guiding principles, his commitment to family, and the way he persevered through adversity is what came through to us. Dad had suffered before, and this was his next bout of suffering in life. We later learned that in going through his divorce, it would be the second time he read a book called A Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor. The book, he said, was the most impactful read of his life. The first time he had read it was after the abrupt passing of his father. Our parents divorced the first time we can recall our dad living one of Viktor Frankl's core themes. That is, everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's own attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. He chose happiness then and continued to make this choice until his final breath. Shortly thereafter, he received some external help in choosing his daily life of happiness, and that was his meeting and marrying Marge. Marge shared Dad's zest for friends, laughter, and love in life. And as many said at their wedding, their zest and love was contagious. Dad's mantra for his marriage with Marge was, if it's important to you, it's important to me. Which meant I do not need to agree with it or even understand it, but if it's important to you, I will make it important to me. We now see this as a further acknowledgement and understanding and respect of the beauty inherent in the nuance of those we love.
Our time with Dad could not have been more enjoyable, fulfilling, and life-changing. We all talked almost daily, and no one ever ended a call without saying, "I love you." He taught us so many valuable lessons. Hate the sin, not the sinner. All humans, all races, and all religions, and those following them should be treated equal. Do unto others as you'd have done unto you. Be humble and do not judge. It's not the arrow, it's the Indian. Being happy is a choice, and always choose happiness. And a few that became highly relevant in the last few months of his battle. When the going gets tough, the tough gets going. The only disability in life is a bad attitude. Sometimes when you need strength, the strength finds you. And finally, he would say, that's the thing with tough times. They always pass. Dad was so tough, so good at sports, so funny, so cool. But he always showed us it was okay to cry. And not only okay, but damaging to not show and let out your emotions. What a lesson. While he showed us that it was cool to play sports, he also showed us that the arts, acting, singing, playing an instrument, and painting were all cool. He made almost everything he did look so cool. That was his way, so eternally comfortable in his own skin. And as a result, we sought and seek safety in this larger-than-life person, our dad. Dad kicked cancer's butt for the first 4 years. The first 90% of the battle, he wouldn't have even realized he was in the battle. He would always find the silver lining, no matter what the news he received. At one point, Marge and my dad called us to tell us the current treatment was not working, and the cancer had grown. Marge, in her very professional way, explained that they needed to change the chemo cocktail. At that, Dad said he had decided to battle with his own cocktail and poured himself a Jameson's to start the next round of the fight. As we all know, that was Dad. The 4 years of battle was a true blessing. His last years are some of the most special memories for us and Dad and Marge's grandchildren, Neve, Audrey, Luke, Emma, Claire, Jack, and Oren. We even got to see the Eagles win the Super Bowl together. It was over these 4 years that we spent a lot of time reflecting on Dad's life and what made it so special and unique. He did not become a U.S. Senator, a titan of industry, or a famous performer. We're all actually a little bit surprised about that one. But something about his life stuck out beyond that of him just being our dad. Over our lives, people would say unusual things about him, about how he made them feel, about how impressive he was, about what he did for one of their loved ones. We were not so surprised when family and friends said such things, but we're talking about strangers to us, acquaintances, and the number of lucky people Dad had impacted along his life's journey. So we have spent many, many hours, days, and years recently trying to grasp our dad's life and ultimately his legacy. After such thought and reflection, we may not have the exact answer, but we believe we're pretty close. That is, our dad collected relationships, neither for worldly ambition, nor to climb the corporate ladder, nor for social status, but in a different way. And he did not force this lifelong accumulation. It came naturally and genuinely. The foundation of these relationships was and is love. As Viktor Frankl states, love is the only way to grasp another human being in the innermost core of his personality. No one can become fully aware of the very essence of another human being unless he loves him. Dad loved you all in your innermost core. It is through this accumulation of special relationships that my dad found meaning in life, and we believe accentuated the meaning of many of our lives. Frankl explained, "For the first time in my life, I saw the truth as it is set into song by so many poets, proclaimed as the final wisdom by so many thinkers. The truth, that love is the ultimate and highest goal to which man can aspire." From what I've heard as a very young girl until his last breath, Dad aspired and achieved like few others have in their life. Before we continue, we have to stop and thank all of you here today for helping our family and helping my dad live the life he lived. You are a family to us, and we love all of you. But we cannot pass up this opportunity to thank Marge with every ounce of our hearts. This tissue gave me everything it had today. Dad's life was based on relationships and love, and how fitting it was for his marriage to Marge to be his life's crescendo. The two of you showed us again and again, in actions, not words, the power of love. A love even more powerful than death. Marge and Dad's love was very special and very instructive. Dad had two very similar and very powerful women love and care for him. His mother, Rita, and Marge, both beautiful women inside and out. Both had no shortage of suffering in their life, and both lived as Dad lived, with an attitude of gratitude and with love in their hearts, and enough love to go around. Marge, we are eternally grateful to call you Mom and have you in our lives and in the lives of our children. We love you with all of our hearts.
You guys remember that hashtag, right? So we'll conclude here, or should I say, finish up before we finish the next phase of the celebration, which was usually the part of the celebration that my dad enjoyed the most, with his laughing and the food and of course drinks, right? So, but we want to just very, very humbly submit that our father, Aloysius James Bergin, Berg, Papa Doc, Big Al, without telling us, gave us all here today one of life's greatest parting gifts, and left this great legacy to be passed down to all of us and to all of our future generations. I don't know if I would say it's the meaning of life, but at least it's a blueprint or a roadmap for fulfillment and happiness on earth and in death. And the roadmap is love. Love every day, and build and strengthen relationships every day on the foundation of love. When true love and genuineness are the root of relationships, the growth and the breadth of those relationships, the life of those relationships, and life is limitless, meaning without end. To provide one last quote from Dad's favorite book, Love goes very far beyond the physical person or the beloved. It finds its deepest meaning in his spiritual being, his inner self. Whether or not he is actually present, whether or not he is still alive at all, ceases somehow to be of importance. That is what my dad received from many of you, and that is what he showed many of us. That's Dad's legacy, and I know it's part of all of you. And we hope it will be part of all of our relationships for many generations to come. Relationships built on love and life built on love. A few days, maybe even hours, while Dad was barely conscious before he was passing, he mustered up some energy and said the following, and I quote, we said, "Dad, what is it, Dad? What are you thinking about?" And he just had a smile on his face and he said, "All the good times." That's our dad, that's Al Bergin. All the love and all the good times. Thank you so much. So we're actually going to have a couple people come up right now and just sing one last song. But my dad passed away at so many important times of our life. A song that my dad loved and is so tied to our family for many, many generations. So anyone, I think Gene had mentioned you were going to come up, maybe Bobby. We're going to have the Michael play over here and gather, I guess, over by Michael to sing Danny Boy. So anyone else who'd like to come up and join, please do so. Thanks, Jack. Sorry, so there's going to be one little video first and then they're going to do the singing.
This is a very special song for many of us here. I don't know if you've noticed, there's probably more than 2 or 3 Irishmen in the room tonight. So it's always a treat to, when we've had too much Jameson's, to generally get around to the Irish national anthem. So I want to share that with you now for Matt and for Aaron. It's a tradition that goes on for many generations, and I hope one of my children, or perhaps grandchildren, will take up the banner with Danny Boy. So, I'd love you to join in with me if you'd like, as we go with the Irish national anthem. The pipes are calling from glen to glen and down the mountainside. The summer's gone and winter's in the meadow. 'Tis you must go and I must fly. But come ye back when summer's in the meadow. For when the fall is hushed and white with snow, yes, I'll be there in sunshine and in shadow. Oh, Danny boy, oh, Danny boy, I love you so.
Danny boy, the pipes are calling from glen to glen and down the mountainside. closer.